Hi, I'm Erin Skipper, and today I'm really excited to be talking to Jeroen de Wit, and he is a QHHT practitioner. That's quantum healing hypnosis technique. And this is a technique that was developed or introduced by Dolores Cannon. Jeroen, could you just give a little bit of background about yourself and how you got into QHHT?
Sure. Thanks for having me, Erin. And thank you for the introduction. Yeah, my name is Jeroen de Wit. My name is from the Netherlands. This is where I was born and raised, but I live in the United States. I'm based in Los Angeles. I found Dolores Cannon in 2006 after I'd been on my own healing journey for a number of years and had learned how to do energy healing and working in consciousness. And then I was visiting a friend at a healing practice, and there was this book on his coffee table with a little alien on the cover. It said custodians. And so I started leafing through this book and just drank the Kool-Aid, reading it. It was like, oh my God, this lady, whoever this is, she knows stuff that I guess I'd know as well. That sounds like true to me. And so I devoured that whole book from cover to cover, and then found other books and read her by Dolores Cannon and read these books as well. Figured out that she was teaching this wonderful technique, quantum healing hypnosis technique, and turned out she was teaching a class in the Netherlands, in The Hague, in 2006, which was like 3 months away from the first moment that I picked up her book. And so I took the class, and it was the first time that I was in a learning type of environment where I actually was so excited about what was being shared. I'd always been like a C student in school, was just going through the motions, just doing what I was supposed to be doing. Sorry, my phone is. And so yeah, I was so excited to hear about this lady's wisdom, and just couldn't wait to start doing this wonderful technique. So I started kind of, totally fresh to it in 2006, and I've been regressing thousands of people ever since. And I'm a Gemini. I don't know if that's part of it, but it's never routine. It's always a different story every day. It's like, for me, it's like watching like another crazy episode of like a crazy Netflix sci-fi show every day. I never know what's going to happen. So yeah, that was the short of it, how I got into
Yeah,
this.
yeah. Could you just, in case anyone doesn't know what you mean by regressing?
Sure. So quantum healing hypnosis technique is a form of past life regression. So I help people go into this hypnotic state, and then they will experience one or more different lifetimes. And it's called regression and past life regression, but it's not really an accurate term for it, because people go into alternate lives. So different lives that our souls are having concurrently, I hope that's the right word, with our current lifetime. So a different expression of our soul that we access with the purpose of receiving the quantum codes that it holds to upgrade and uplevel in our current lifetime. So it's not just past life tourism, it's first and foremost a healing experience. That's the whole purpose of it. So yeah, regressing kind of means just going on like a hypnotic or meditative journey, tapping into this other expression of your soul.
I think that's how I first came across your videos. It was about 4 years ago. I was having experiences of memories of past or other lifetimes, and some of them weren't from the past. And it was becoming more clear, this idea that past, present, and future is an illusion, and as Dolores talks about, they can be happening all concurrently. So this is really fascinating, and I agree. Even in my experience of doing energy work, every session it's like it's a new episode of a sci-fi series that I've never, sometimes there's themes that are repeating, but sometimes it's totally new and information gets revealed. And I've done one of your past life regressions. I haven't done the full QHHT session, which I know can take several hours, but you now do both virtual and in-person, kind of shorter past life regression sessions, right?
Yeah, those are the group sessions. Yeah.
Yeah, the
So yeah, I
group
do those
sessions.
both
Yeah.
in person and online. Yeah.
Okay. I have a question about something that I often experience and that I experienced in past life regression. One of the sessions you did, I think during quarantine, I participated. And I often have, it's often that I'm in a water world or like a dimension of water. And is this something that you see and hear a lot? And do you think it's like a literal planet made of water, or do you think it's some higher dimensional plane that we couldn't perceive, even if we had the equipment to go to that particular planet? Do you think we'd actually see water there?
I think it could be both. I have encountered others that come from water planets. It's not uncommon, and oftentimes people have like cetacean, is that how you say it, like whale, dolphin type of bodies when they're on
Mhm.
those planets. Is that you too? Yeah.
I didn't have that kind of
Um,
body with that in my past life regression experience, but I see and feel it a lot. I don't know how
yeah.
to describe it, but that's yeah.
And sometimes people have light bodies, what we consider light bodies, so not like dense physical matter, like our bodies, but and I think based on the experiences that people have when they go to the sites, I think that water plant is like matter in its own vibrational plane, but it sounds like the dimension is like what we would say a higher one than the three-dimensional earth one, because of the sense of unity and connection to all life that is there, that we don't experience here on earth yet.
Yet we,
Does
you
that
know,
make sense?
I've shared, this has
Yeah.
been a common theme in a lot of videos and interviews that I've done recently. This is, something a lot of us are experiencing from time to time, and more and more and more, but I look forward to the day when it's the predominant, just that,
Same. Yeah.
yeah.
The status
Actually,
quo, the MO.
speaking of, I have a question. I'll just jump right into it. It could be a little bit controversial, and there was somebody that I was going to have a discussion with, and I heard them talk about sort of the idea of gender fluidity and trans issues and homosexuality, all LGBTQ plus, sort of issues. And it was in a light that kind of like hurt my heart a little bit as a queer person. And I was a little bit kind of disappointed, to be honest, to hear like this,
I bet.
spiritual person talking about it in such a way. I'm curious what you've
Yeah.
experienced and seen with this.
So I bet that spiritual person was talking about it in terms of like, oh, they've been a woman in many lifetimes, and now they're a man, so that's why they're gay, or something like that. Or
It was
was it
something like
like,
that, but also like there was confusion coming in. That's why there was maybe like an intersex or intersex features and stuff like this. And
no, no, it's just that is just a lens that is kind of tainted by the patriarchy, to see it that way. I'm a queer person too. I'm gay and I'm gender queer. Um, and I know from experience, my own experiences, that, and my other LGBTQI people that I work with, we are here to break the antiquated paradigms of the patriarchy of, gender is very, rigid, and when people have to fit those molds over the last millennia, they didn't get the chance to really feel themselves. They lived their lives based on external norms and standards, and that's how we survive. We have lived in a trauma-based society for, I mean, I don't know how long, but for millennia. It sounds like, if you read the history books, and brutality and the cruelty that has been present for so long. Um, so we're now in a time when there is more courage, but also a little bit more space for people to express and explore the truth of who they are beyond those old, antiquated definitions of what it meant what it's meant to be human. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So
completely. Yeah.
a person like myself, I'm in a man's body and I'm completely comfortable in this body. You know, anatomically, I'm a man, but I do not identify with the perception or the concept of masculinity that has been around on this planet for so long. It's not me. It's never been me. And as a kid, I try to fit it, and it was very uncomfortable. And so it's people like myself and like you that are here to be visible in that and to have a voice and to stand up, to be examples of what it's like for other people to examine um, the concepts and standards and norms that we have internalized, and our own genderism, our own homophobia, our own sexism, our own racism, that we've to examine that and to purge it and to become consciousness and to align with being consciousness in this body that is uniquely itself or authentic, because we're all the point the universe is trying to make. So yeah, whenever it's explained in terms of like deviancy or pathology, you're talking to somebody who is still on a journey of trying to recover their own truth about themselves. Even when there's mention of the divine masculine and divine feminine, like it's just consciousness. There doesn't need to be that separation.
Yeah,
And if you have to call it divine in the first place, then like is that just a repackaging of the old? I see the pictures of like the straight white people in flowing robes and like hugging and kissing and the divine, this, that, or the other, which is fine, but can we move past that already, where it's just consciousness, we're just in different bodies. Yeah, I guess I'm an activist in a way. I'm a feminist. I'm a gay activist. I mean, like, just by being who I am, there's no way that could deny, that people that might look different or are different from who I am, that their rights are being stepped on. So, and myself as well. So, I think just being alive and striving to be authentic, you're an activist, because it's a radical phenomenon on this planet to do that.
Very true. And it's kind of
to be yourself. And
it's been quite shocking, to see so many of the rights just being stripped away so quickly this year, especially. And and the consciousness aspect of it, I had an experience in a healing session, I want to say maybe 6 or 7 years ago. I was in like a gem light session, and it was like this quick expansion. And I realized, and I've had this experience several times since I was young, where I really connect with my higher self or my soul. And it's like, there's no gender there. This is just consciousness itself. And we are just beings. We're human beings, and we're all sexual, most of us. There are asexual people, but it's for me, love it, and this is just it's very fluid. And the more light work that I do, the less I identify with the gender binary. And I'm like you, like I'm happy, I'm fine in my female body, but that's not what I am. That's not my soul. That's not my consciousness. And I do feel this person that I was talking about, they had they were describing how homophobic their father was. And I was like, well, so maybe some of the perception that you're, that the sort of spiritual perception even of being gender fluid or transgender comes from this, like you said, it's the patriarchy. It's these, which I was just reading something that Alok is a non-binary activist and speaker, and beautifully eloquent on nearly every topic. And they were posting an essay or a book that somebody had written about how this binary is really like a racist, rather recent structure that has been in place only in the last couple 100 years, where it's been really enforced. And we know there have been two-spirit transgender multi-gender people. And then just on this planet, who knows on other planets how many genders, you know, it's not always just one or two. Who knows how many, you know, forms of sexuality and reproduction and all of this is out there in the multiverse. So
and I agree with the speaker and with you. Like, I think gender is the first separator or the divider of the experience of being source on this planet, you know, or it's been like that. And then, you know, follows the othering that we learn to do based on ethnicity or sexuality or, yeah, all the other ones. Yeah.
yeah.
But gender is, I think it's the first and the biggest ones that we experience first. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thanks for going there with
But to hell with it. Fuck it.
For you personally, you obviously have received QHHT and gone through regressions yourself. What have been some of the biggest revelations about yourself and or, you know, things that have changed as a result of doing it?
That's a good question. Because I'm trying to remember what it was like at the time, because now it's kind of like, oh yeah, alien. Oh yeah, this, you know, it's not a blip on the radar anymore. So it's been a gradual journey. So it has shifted how I relate to my identity. It shifted from you know, identifying as, or trying to identify as what we spoke of earlier, as a human being, as it's been seen or perceived on this planet within the systems of thinking that we've been around, to now I identify more as a like an eternal being, or like I know that my life, this focus here that I have now is part of many other focuses, that this is not the only experience. And you know, it's really cool because in a sense it's given me more what word is that, more want or more will to be here on this planet. Because in the past I would be like, oh, I can't wait for this to be over, or it's so hard to be here, all that stuff. But now I'm like, no, I came here to like experience it all, you know, and it's not going to last very long, because an earth life seems to be, you know, you pop out of it and there are your people, your star family, go, oh, how was it? You were just gone for 2 minutes, you know. That's what I've heard so many times. So to get all the juice out of it, you know, while we're here. So yeah, that's I would say the biggest shift that it had for me, not just my own sessions, but witnessing, you know, all these countless other sessions with my clients, and the same patterns emerging and the same experiences emerging, that really solidified for me, okay, yeah, I am an eternal being and I'm here briefly, so better make it work. And it's, you know, it's not like a bypass to like make everything rosy and cute, but you know, it framed the whole experience, even the difficult experiences and the depression and stuff that I've been going through, and you know, in a different light. Yeah, that there is purpose to it, and that there is this, yeah, absorbing the experience. So, yeah, feeling beyond it. Does that make sense?
Completely, and it's so profound. And I mean, I can relate to the feeling of not wanting to be here. It's so hard. And I had a shared death experience a few years ago that really, I mean, I've been on a spiritual path always. I learned meditation when I was 4. I've been really into, you know, meditation and consciousness for decades. And I was a meditation teacher for a long time. And yeah, you know, I'm still human. There are still things that I have struggled with. And sometimes I just can't wait for it to be over. But also I have had so many experiences that have made it so clear and have given me that broader perspective about why I'm here, why a lot of people are here. And it's really, you know, so many people don't have that. And so, people do take their lives because it's hard to be here. And I just think that so much suffering and, just this feeling of hopelessness and senselessness for being here. I think that, there's many ways to, I don't want to say overcome this. I don't know if it ever totally goes away for everyone, but to sort of see like why we're here, I think gives a lot of motivation. There are times when it's just like, man, it would be so much easier to just be like, in spirit form wherever, doing whatever that is. And I've only caught little glimpses of it, but yeah, I would say, in your experience, having worked with hundreds, I don't know, maybe even thousands of people, and seeing this kind of insight and reason that they chose and want to be here, what do you think is like, has there been anything that's been kind of like really shocking or kind of big in that like, 'cause sometimes I get like taken by surprise in sessions when I'm doing energy work. It's like, wow, who is this person actually?
Well, I mean, there's been so many. I'm trying to, like, the most recent one that I thought it just tickled me. It was just so funny because most of the people that I work with in this current lifetime, when we go through their session and I talk to the higher self and then what is the purpose of their life, they're here to help, they're volunteers, they're here to help elevate consciousness on the planet. So, but it's not always like that. And so I remember working with this one guy who went to a lifetime where I found him in a session as an angelic being, and he was looking at Earth from space and kind of pondering it. And I was like, "What are you thinking about?" And he said, or it said, "I love Earth." It's like, "What do you love about it?" So there's so many different experiences to be had, which is so really beautiful. And he also said, "Well, that's also where I go to learn and to experience pleasure." And so we explored that particular scene, and then I moved him forward to where he went to Earth, and he ended up so funny. He ended up in a life of a beautiful, voluptuous woman who lived in like a small village in like another time, not the modern time. And she was a redhead. And one of the questions I asked my people to orient them into their past lives: see yourself doing whatever it is that you do with the majority of your time. And I'm watching my client's face on the table that he's on. And it starts to frown, and he goes, "I'm in bed." And I was like, "Oh, really? What are you doing? Why are you in bed?" And he goes, "I have sex, a lot of it, and not just with one man." And so come to find out that that was the way for this angel, a way to experience pleasure, to be like this woman who her cottage was situated like strategically on like the what do you call it, like the thoroughfare road,
The
like from
main
village to
main
village
main
where all the
drag.
new travelers would come.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah. You get access to the freshest meat, in town. and and so that's what she did. I mean, she got paid her bills doing these things, but she said, "I'm not doing it funny. It's really, I love doing this." So that was, I mean, it just tickled because, some of these spiritual circles, like sex has to be like sublimated as well into like, it's got to be some perfect divine something, or, it's still this kind of like tightness around it, especially in America. Um, and this was just beautiful, an angel that went down to experience pleasure in that way. I thought that was, I mean, that stuff just tickles me because it's so kind of the opposite of what people expected to me, and I love it when that happens to me. It's like, oh wait, this is a way to do. Yeah.
I actually remember, I had forgotten about that, but as you were starting to tell it, I remember hearing you share that story on Instagram or another YouTube channel. I watched an interview with you, I think. But I honestly think that this is a reason why a lot of us are here. You know, I don't know where or how I sort of came up with this idea, but in doing research on star seeds and in working with different mentors, people talk about how, you know, in a lot of different bodies and types of bodies and incarnations, the way that they experience or reproduce or experience sex and pleasure is very different. It is not as intense. And our human physiology is designed in such a way that we can experience a lot of things very intensely, you know, different ecstatic higher states of consciousness and pleasure and sexual pleasure. I'm like, I can see why I decided to come into for sure. Like, you know, it because
Earth is bone town. Yeah.
what's that? What did you say?
I said Earth is the bone town of the universe.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. But I think you're right. There is so much just shame and stigma around sexuality, and also, you know, I've been in spiritual communities, you know, most of my life, and I have seen this a lot. And it's the like, you know, the merging of sexuality and spirituality is often and then it gets misunderstood, you know. It's like, well, people think tantra is just all about sex, and it's not. It's about consciousness, but we can also just, yeah, we can also just have fun, and I think joy and love and connection, and if it's just that, then, and if it's fulfilling you,
Oh,
you know, I think that that's
yeah.
the thing where it's like, if it's not fulfilling and it's causing pain, well, then it's being misused. This energy gets misused, I feel. You know, it's not that it's
Yeah, and
bad.
also to allow no, also to allow oneself to have a journey with it, you know, like because of my experience here being raised on this planet, and you know how I was raised, you know I fucked like over 1,000 guys like in my lifetime, because that's in that time, that was like my journey. I just wanted to experience these things, and that was the only way that I thought I could relate to other people, you know. So it was limited, and but that's what I knew at the time. And it was fun, you know, for the time it lasted. Now it's completely different. Like I would call myself more like a demisexual. Like I don't get aroused until there's some kind of intimacy there. That's what it's like now. So why is it not okay to have that journey? You know,
Mhm.
that's a valuable journey to be on, not just for me, but for everyone.
Yeah, it's true. I've been seeing a lot of posts recently about body counts, and like men talking about, like, asking women their body count, which means how many people they've had sex with. And they're so, it's like, you know, it's okay if guys do, but if a woman has had sex with more than like 3 or 5 people, I'm like, what, this week?
Today?
Yeah, last night.
Right. Before lunch?
But
I
it's
mean,
it's just so
it's
absurd.
the old ugly patriarchal shaming. I hate it. Like, oh no, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, let's see. We can bring it back to QHHT, or we could continue to talk about this all night. That's fine with me
We're
too.
on topic. Okay.
But I did I'm curious, let's see. You said something that people might not be aware of. Again, I've read a lot about Dolores Cannon, so I'm familiar with this idea of volunteers. And you know, you said it just a few minutes ago about how some people, they volunteered to come here. And I really, you know, for me, it was like when I started hearing about this, I was like, oh, this explains so much how I've felt my whole life. Like, I don't think I'm really from here, you know? And then there's also this idea that Dolores Cannon has talked about the new earth and this big shift, and we're volunteering to come here to be part of this ascension. So could you just give a little bit of a historical background on that concept?
It's kind
where
of
the
what you
term
just
comes from.
described. So, yeah. So Dolores coined these terms, especially if you read her book, The Three Waves of Volunteers. You know, she's worked over with thousands of people, and she started to recognize patterns that the first wave of volunteers came here after, you know, the kids found the matches. We detonated an atomic bomb, and I think it was like Earth was already ascending in her own pace, and humans were lagging behind. And especially when the atomic bomb was exploded, different like alien races across the universe, they were like, oh wait, coffee break is over, we got to take care of, you know, some shit here. Earth is something's happening here. So it was decided that because um it was against the free will of the planet and people to just, you know, park their spaceships overhead and go on the board and say, people, what are you doing? You know, you shouldn't be doing all these things, and this is how you're supposed to live. But they could incarnate on the planet and have their boots on the ground and experience life and anchor like a higher frequency within the human body and on the planet. And that would help to elevate the frequency of consciousness on the planet. So she identified this first wave, and I forgot the specifics, but they probably had a hard time. I sometimes work with these amazing lights, these people that are like my parents' age, like in their upper 70s or early 80s, and they somehow have managed to hold on to that light. I mean, it's just like it makes me cry whenever I meet them. And you know, I feel their journey that they've had on this planet through the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, and, you know, all the shit, all the, you know, the societal shit and the tightness and rigidity that was there, having to have lived through that and still hang on to their otherness, their light. It's beautiful. And then there's the second wave. I think that's my generation. I'm from 71. They also had a hard time. They often don't want kids, lots of depression. And then the newer waves, the third waves and the waves beyond, are the kids that are coming in now that say, fuck you and your bullshit, you know, of your genderism and your, you know, your sexism and all that shit. I'm here to be myself. I don't care what you think about it. You know, like my generation, I I absorbed or internalized a big part of the paradigm that was around, and then learning to find myself within it. And this is a journey of therapy, healing, all kinds of healing tools to purge all that shit and to unlearn. But these kids that are coming in now, they don't have to do that anymore. I mean, thanks to, you know, our generations and the one before, they absorbed, they spiritually breathed enough of the consciousness now that these kids can come in with more light and
Totally.
and be examples and way showers of like what is supposed to be. Yeah.
Exactly. And I also was born in the 70s and come from a family where I'm actually a fourth generation of meditation practitioners and teachers, because all my parents, grandparents, and
Wow.
even great grandparents did transcendental meditation, and my parents and grandparents studied with Maharishi. And so I grew up with this, you know, watching my parents' generation shift the consciousness of the planet. But it was from that level, and I made a video about this recently. It's like, was it spiritual bypassing? You know, because I feel like our generation is really here to transmute it, and then you know, these kids coming up that are just coming in totally, like you said, outside the norm, outside the binary, just completely you know, a different state of consciousness, I feel, and a um different beings. It's really actually
Yes.
really cool to see and gives me hope for the future. um, so yeah,
Was
that
it?
thank you for talking about that.
I'm curious about that experience that you had, because I sometimes meet people that are a little bit older and they've grown up in like either self-realization or Maharishi or some other spiritual practice. And what I sometimes notice is that there's bypassing, like it's all about being better than what you are. It's all this reaching and living in another place or reaching for this other place because right here and right now just doesn't cut it, you know. And so is that kind of what you experience with those, or like to
Yes,
be
yes,
happy
and
and to allow for joy and to not have to listen to what the guru says all the time because you have no connection to what you want or what makes you feel good or who you are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Recognize your,
I will say yes, that has been a big you know, and this is something that has really taken me years to come to terms with, and to you know, step into my own of who I am. Like, I'm a unique individual, and yet I also love and value the meditation and what it can do, and it can shift and elevate consciousness very quickly, and I've seen it do it for myself. I've gone from extreme suffering and, you know, rock bottoms to really feeling peace and love and joy, and that it's very, very real. Like, what it can do is very real, but I also think for it to be really stabilized, we also have to process our shit and
yeah,
really get in there. And so yeah, and I, you know, because I grew up with it, I have a lot of peers and friends who have also grown up in this sort of idealistic, you know, we're just going to meditate and save the world kind of thing. And I believe that that is possible to do that. But I think also there needs to be an integration and taking responsibility for the processing of the trauma that is holding us back from really going to the next level. So
yeah,
this is where, you know, I think these younger generations, like you said, it's like, no bullshit. Like, we're not here because it's the clock is ticking, and
mm,
it's kind of a now or never in terms of, you know, the health of the planet and our human race.
yeah. I completely agree with you in terms of the tools and the practices. They're super helpful. I mean, I've
Oh yeah,
accessed them in my own life. Yeah.
same. So with these volunteers that have decided to come in at this time, I really feel like we are in it. We are in the shift right now, and I've heard this from so many people are saying the same thing. Like, we are in the shift. I heard somebody say something the other day that between 2020 and 2024 is like the biggest leap in consciousness that there's been maybe ever. You know, it's like 100 years of evolution of consciousness happening in such a short period of time. And I really feel that way myself. Like, there's something happening so quickly, and yet it still feels like everything is so slow, and there's still so many people that just aren't seeing it and are just holding on to these materialistic ideas of who and what we are and why we're here. And sometimes I get so frustrated because I feel like, you know, this sort of like bridge, like we're all just sort of like straddling this, you know, this waterway between two worlds right now. And you know, the idea that these souls coming in are way showers, and I feel like, you know, a lot of us it's that are sort of going through this, as more and more people wake up to it, it can be a little it can rock your world. I don't know if you had that experience, but even like, I've been on a spiritual path for decades, but having going through my shared death experience the last few years, like, rocked my damn world and totally shattered I was like, any sort of idea of what reality was, in a way, was shattered. It's like, wow, we really don't know anything. You know, and it just gets like more and more massive the more, you know, the more we look at it. So
That-
yeah.
I was going to say that sounds like an amazing experience. I mean, you know, hard to process and integrate, but you know, to experience that level of truth about yourself and about consciousness, that sounds amazing. I've had similar, not as intensely sounding as yours, but I've had similar experiences where it's like, oh, this is what it is. You know, it's not what we thought it was, and it's always there. It's always available. You know, when I, you know, when I talk to you and when I talk to my other clients that have had experiences like that, these experiences seem to have been very direction giving in a person's life. You know, because once you've experienced that, there's no way to unsee it or unexperience it, and you know, you're going to want more of it, and you're going to access ways of being and tools that help you to bring more of that in, I think.
100%. And it's so hard, you know, because like I left my 25-year career, I moved to a different country. You know, I'm doing all these things that on paper are just kind of crazy. It's like I've left everything, I don't have anything, but I know I can't go back to the way things were, the way that I was operating. I can't. Now I've been seen and I've seen and I've been shown who I am and some of my gifts and abilities. Maybe there's a lot more that I don't even know about yet, probably true for all of us. But it's like I really just can't step into that role, and it's not necessarily easier. I feel more confident and sure of who I am, but it doesn't make it easier to exist on the planet and to pay my bills and all of that. And I'm sure all of that will come with it too. But yeah, it's a challenge to try and like figure out how to operate still as a human.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was wondering when I have not done QHHT yet. We've talked about doing sessions, but the full sessions are always done in person. And I wasn't living in Los Angeles when I came across you and your work. I know that, so it's quantum healing hypnosis technique. So the healing aspect of it. I actually have paid for the training to do level 1 for QHHT, but I haven't begun it yet because I have had just a lot of upheaval in my life the past few months. But what is the healing aspect of it? Is it a specific, I mean, I don't know how much you can talk about, but is it a specific technique? Is it something that, like, what happens during the session to cause that?
So, yeah, healing always happens, when we turn inward and we access, or we give the floor to the part of us that is, unseen and unheard or denied during our upbringing or being alive on this planet. So it's the part of us that knows it is source, God, creator, goddess, whatever word you like for that. To be in this prolonged space where you focus on that part of yourself, that seems to be very, very healing. And the healing can be becoming aware of your feelings about yourself for the first time. It can be clearing emotional, energetic debris that you've been holding on to for so long. It can be physical issues being cleared on the spot. That also happens. Bones being moved back into place, or all kinds of physical issues as well that are being cleared. So it's a whole range. Oftentimes when people speak about healing within the context of QHHT, they immediately think that's it's like a wonder cure for all physical ailments, and that's not accurate. Healing takes place on the quantum level, and it ripples out into the different layers of our existence. And oftentimes it is like profound physical healing that takes place, but it can also be these other ways that I try to describe: emotional, mental, or just like every now and then. This is very rare, but people come in with these expectations of what they think it should be like, and then there's not enough time in one session for them to trust themselves, and you can only do so much as a practitioner to help try to facilitate that. So more time is needed, but then they come out of it feeling frustrated, feeling like a failure, feeling not good enough, all that stuff. And this might be the first time that they ever tap into those feelings, those feelings that they've taken on as a result of their fucked up upbringing or being alive on this planet, but they have tried to deny by burying themselves in high power jobs or codependent relationships or drugs or other ways of not feeling themselves. So that is the range of healing that I've seen happen. It's not, QHHT doesn't mean it's always going to be physical healing. Sometimes, it's so unique from one person to the next what takes place. Sometimes issues are guiding or helping a person. Physical issues are there to guide or help a person or the people around them into certain dynamics or new ways of being, or you don't know. There's, you can't say like always when there's this issue, people have got to learn this or do that. It's so very unique from one person to the next. Sometimes, like I've had this woman, I did a post about it as well. She had like severe sight issues, and oftentimes sight is just cleared on the spot in sessions. But this time, um, the higher self said, you know, we can clear this for her on the spot, but we're not going to. And here am I thinking, like, well, why are you being such a dick? You know, why can't you just help her? I didn't say it out loud, but I was like, oh, really? Well, why not? You know? And so it goes, well, because that is not her miracle. It would be too distracting in her life. You know, what her life is about now. Her miracle is going to be her to create this authentic life for herself and to do these things that are aligned with who she is. That is going to be her miracle. To have completely have her sight like 2020 right now would be too distracting from that. And so but it said we're going to help her. She will no longer struggle to see. And so I get this thank you note in the mail like four weeks later, and it said, I can still notice that some of the like the cones and the bars or something in anatomy of the eye are still missing, but I no longer have to squint to like see things. So as an example of, you know, the range of healing that is possible and the whys behind it, it's a very personalized, unique process. So it's not, you know, like writing a list for Santa Claus and say, you know, check all these boxes and make it happen. You know, it's really about engaging in or being an active participant in relating to yourself, to that part of yourself that for most of us hasn't been seen or heard by our environment because of the type of lives that we've lived on this planet. Yeah. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. And it's just giving me some revelations about a healing session that I did with somebody this week where I sometimes see and feel the deposits of heavy stuck energy where, you know, certain patterns have sort of congested and it comes out as like this black sticky tar or shards of metal. It looks like it. But I could feel that this type of energy was there and it was starting to clear in this person, but it usually like it'll come out and you know, there's this whole process of extracting it, and I actually see like some of their guides and different elements come in to facilitate and make it like more complete. But it was like there, but it just didn't want to come out. But then I had a conversation with this person afterward, and I feel like that's where it was coming out. You know, there's still something that she has to actively process in order for it to fully release. And I know for myself, I've had chronic health issues, and when I'm feeling really good, I'm like, oh, I can eat whatever I want. But when I have pain, I know I have to be really careful about what I eat and what I think and what I do. And having had chronic illness, you know, I have seen a lot of the very difficult lessons that it has, you know, taught me throughout my life, and in some ways has made me have to be in isolation at times, you know, just because I just couldn't be around people or with people, and I had to really retreat and go inward into myself, and that was also extremely beneficial. You know, that gave me an opportunity to really go into my consciousness and you know, see and feel and expand and do all these things from that level, and I'm really grateful for that. But it's not an easy path. Why we choose the hard lessons, and I've chosen many, and many people have, you know, why we choose these hard lessons. It's like it's not always easy, but if we can see it that way and work through them, it is incredibly beneficial. And I listen to a lot of near-death experiencers, and some of them will talk about, you know, having this disorder, and then they're on the other side, and their guides are like, okay, well, we're going to remove this for you. We're going to heal this aspect. So you're going to go back, and you're not going to have this cancer or, you know, this severe illness. And other times, you know, it's not fully healed. But it's so interesting, you know, it's like the quantum, but also angelic and so far beyond our human comprehension, what can take place. and healing, can happen. And yet sometimes it also can't. I also had an experience recently where somebody had been in a severe accident, and I was asked to do remote distant support for that person. And it was the first time I was like, this person's not gonna be back in their body. They just, it's like, of course, any miraculous thing that can happen to support that we want, but sometimes it's just not possible. And learning to come to
Okay.
acceptance is it's a tough, but it is something that we all, life is hard, and we do
Yeah.
have to accept it.
And we die.
And we
Yeah.
die, and then we die.
Yeah. Well, not
Exactly. We're all
well,
gonna do it.
sometimes
We're
it's
all,
checkout time. There's nothing you can do because it's time to check out. Yeah.
yeah.
That's what. Yeah. I regarding healing, that was funny. I had a client come in and she talked about her cat being having diabetes and having to give the cat insulin shots twice a day. And also the cat was on Prozac, was anxiety. And so when we talked to the
Poor
higher self,
kitty.
I know, right? She was such a good kid. She was such a good mom to that kitty. I could tell, but it just had some issues. So when we got to the higher self, I asked about the cat, like if we could check in on the cat. And it said, we can heal the anxiety completely. There's no more need for this, because it was there for my client to learn about chemical imbalance in others, which helps her in her work with working with people. However, it said the diabetes, the cat does not want to let it go because it loves the moments of togetherness with its mom, when it gets the insulin shots. So free will, it just determined that it couldn't be cleared and healed because the cat wanted to hold on to it. It's a different perspective on why certain times these issues are there. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah. I have so many questions. So I haven't actually talked much about star seeds and this whole concept in much of my material, and I often hint at it, but I haven't. When I've done sort of work in that realm, I've done it very quietly.
Really?
Yeah, but I do feel like a lot of my work. Are you familiar with Stephen Greer?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, he is a UFOologist. I forget there's a term, but he very much is into ETs and has briefed a lot of government officials and presidents and all these really high level people about what's really going on with ETs. And one of the things he talks about is the scare tactics that have been going on for decades through the CIA and entertainment and movies, and now we see it. I see it even with really, not that they're all really respected scientists, and I'm not going to name any names, but high level scientists who talk about the potential fears and threats that ETs pose, and this space wars thing. And it's just an important topic, I feel, because there is this fear of the unknown in general, or the fear of the other in general. And I think this is one of the biggest problems, and why they're not here using their bullhorns to say, hey, we're here, we've been here all along, this is what we need to do, because they see where we're at, and there's a lot of racism and otherness,
Phobia. Yeah.
a lot of phobia. So it makes sense that they're not making themselves really known, but this idea that that they're really just a threat is something that's very manufactured, and fear is often used as a way to unite people, unfortunately, and get people all riled up, and we've certainly seen that in the US in the last few years. But you've touched on the first wave of volunteers that Dolores talks about really came in when they saw the nuclear testing and nuclear bombing happening. And I've heard that this creates the effect of nuclear weapons creates a negative ripple, almost like a tear throughout the entire universe, the entire cosmos.
Yeah, several sessions have people told me this, or the higher selves told me this. Yeah. I was working with somebody who went into the fairy realm, and they use like these portals to travel between the dimensions, and they told me that nuclear detonations, they rippled through the different dimensions, and they fucked things up. Like they couldn't they didn't know where they would go if they would enter a portal because it was all screwed up. So not just in that way, but also it influences other planets and other systems that are beyond Earth. That's what I've been told several times.
Yeah, and it's so, it's like we just sometimes think our actions are so non-consequential, but
Yeah.
through the unified field, everything is one, whether it's here, China, Antarctica, Mars, Andromeda, it's the same field of consciousness everywhere. So it makes sense that if something is happening at such a, small scale, I mean, at atomic level, it's above what the Planck scale, but the deeper and deeper you go into the fabrics of creation, the more powerful it is. So this field of consciousness, I've heard quantum physicists like John Hagelin talk about it and describe it as being millions of times more powerful than nuclear energy and the atomic bomb. So if you think about that, like love and pure consciousness being that powerful, this is really the thing that we need to shift and to create this sort of phase transition into a world that is more sustainable and healthy for all of us on the planet. And I mean, I can just imagine, and I do often, because I want to see glimpses of it in my lifetime. I want to experience that because it's just so much more fun when things are good and when people are happy.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I mean, I've heard that there's like things slated to happen that will facilitate more of this, like certain events, cosmic events and stuff that are coming to do this.
Like with ETs or planetary alignments, or is there anything?
Yeah, like
I think it's I'm always cautious because I've had so many like people telling me what's going to happen in the future, and then it's like, oh well, it's done, we don't have to do anything. So sometimes, but I also like to hear.
there was this talk about the event for a while. Do you know what? Have you heard about this? It's
Yeah.
like influx of like cosmic energy that would elevate things, and I think it's been happening or it's already happened. But I heard that there's more of this now coming in, that it's like sort of we're in an accelerated space astronomically, the kind of particles around us or something, that like spiritual evolution or evolution is happening at a faster pace because of the support of these particles. That's what I heard.
Interesting.
And then from other sources, like I was at a Bashar meeting a couple months back, and he was saying that there's a likely chance of alien like disclosure or contact is going to be happening, which I think would be fun. But we'll see if that happens. I mean, if I've heard this over the last 2 decades, like people saying it's going to happen, and then here we are.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think this is the thing about again, sort of seeing the future, foretelling the future, is that we have free will and things can change.
Yeah.
I actually recently posted a video about the scientific research on the Maharishi effect of group practitioners of transcendental meditation, specifically people practicing yogic flying together. Are you familiar with yogic flying? It's an advanced form of transcendental meditation where you're in the field of the transcendent, and then you actually use siddhis or sort of inner powers to the body lifts off the ground. You lift off, you come back down. You're not like flying through the air. Maybe
the hopping.
Happened. It's the hopping. Yeah. And actually, just a funny story about that. The point is, I'll tell the funny story later, but the point is that this group of meditators has been together in Fairfield, Iowa, the community where I lived on and off for many years. And most recently, I was there for 3 years. But they did research showing the quality of life index for the United States, crime rates, rape, homicide, aggravated assault, infant mortality, all these different statistics, and they find that when the group in the US is about close to 2,000, I think it's 1,750, so 1,750 people doing this technique together, that the theory is that it'll create enough harmony in the consciousness, the collective consciousness for the United States, that these crime rates will go down. I'll send you the video and some of the charts or the article, because it's really fascinating, because when the group was the biggest from 2007 to 2011, that all the crime rates just went down and down and down. And then there was a group from India that was there, and there was funding to actually pay people to meditate together every day, and that dissipated, and so the numbers dropped significantly, and then the crime rates just all started increasing from like 2012, 13, 14 till now. It's just been increasing, and it kind of feels like we've just been watching the US just crumble apart in some ways. But for myself, I experienced like a rock bottom around that time when the numbers got the lowest. But that also propelled me to really go into recovery and trauma therapy for childhood trauma, and like I said, really kind of address my individual trauma so that I could be more integrated, and because I think that's really the thing preventing us from maintaining these higher states of consciousness all the time is our trauma. So anything that we can do to heal it, whatever approach we can take to heal it on every level, and there are many levels of it, but this, the deeper levels that we can address, like the quantum level through QHHT and different modalities, the better, because it really, that's where it's really coming from. But then also our thought patterns and our actions and our speech and our behavior. We can't just hang on to the old patterns and expect things to go well. We have to change and adapt and grow with it as well. And I think that's kind of a spontaneous result of doing the inner work, is that you can no longer, be as harmful to yourself and others by doing that kind of work.
I so agree. I was going to make that note with what you're saying, but you just said it. I think that is like a good byproduct from doing all the inner work, that you'll start to notice more about how you are with yourself and what you put out, and you don't want to, as we stop wanting to harm ourselves with the unkind thoughts that we've internalized, we will stop wanting to harm others, because it's no longer acceptable within ourselves. Yeah. So I think doing inner work, whatever, if it's breath work or somatic work or some other body oriented therapy or therapy in general, or healing, whatever it is, or plant medicine, it's all so helpful, not just for the individual, for the collective.
Absolutely. Yeah. In fact, I'm also going to be sharing an interview in the next couple of days with a friend of mine who does Akashic Records readings, and she's done a lot of somatic therapy recently as well. The funny story, maybe we'll end on the funny story.
Please, yes.
So do you know Paul Jasek? He also was doing readings at Liberate Hollywood, Liberate Emporium.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
of course. Yeah.
So I used to teach meditation down the street from the one on Hillhurst in Los Feliz. And I walked in there one day not knowing what to expect, but Paul was available. And so I booked an appointment with him, and he was giving me this amazing reading. He's an amazing human being. And he was like, I don't know what it is that your guides are wanting me to do, but I'm going to just show you. This is really weird. And he started like moving in this certain way and like mimicking exactly how I look when I do yogic flying. And like sometimes, because I used to play basketball, so my knees are really bad. So I sometimes kind of like move in this very distinct way. And he was just like, I don't know what this is. This is so weird. He's never seen anything like it. And I was like, I know exactly what that is, Paul. I know exactly what you're doing. And it just blew my mind. And then it made me like, for days, I was like, wait, who's been watching me? My guide's with me all the time. It just blew my mind, but that I had no idea what was coming, because then after my shared death experience, it was just like, oh no, we're never alone.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing? I wanted to, if it's okay for me to say something about star seeds, because
totally.
It's been around for a bit. I mean, what I think through the work that I do is that we're all consciousness that has lived in other places. Even people on the planet now that don't seem to have any inclination that way, I think we've all of our souls have lived in different places, whether it be just in source or other planets, under other universes. But the souls now that are here that have deliberately chosen to bring in these other experiences to help elevate the frequency of consciousness on the planet, I think that is what I would call star seeds. They are incarnate from the focus of being in the other, say, an Arcturian or an Andromedan, and then they say, I'm going to go to Earth now with this Andromedan consciousness to help elevate the frequency of consciousness on the planet. And I think there's so many of us now here, and I'm saying us because it's me, it's you, it's so many of my, like almost all of my clients. So I think the people that would identify as star seeds, they, like a big part of who their personality is right now, or the composite of experiences from different lives, is this starseed experience, and it's deliberately so to help aid the frequency of consciousness on the planet. And I think you can tell these things, or you can tell if you are connected to animals, or there's a sense of unity that you have, but it looks very different. It feels very different when you're out in the world. It doesn't, you don't recognize it out in the world, but it's something that you carry inside of yourself. Connection to animals, to plants, to nature. If you're interested in spiritual stuff, metaphysical stuff, I think those are all indicators that you have brought in consciousness from another place, deliberately so, to help elevate the frequency of consciousness on the planet now. And so it's done by loving ourselves, to giving space to our own authenticity, to celebrate our uniqueness in all different ways. And when we do so, we become a beacon of light for others to do the same thing for themselves. And I think that's how it is. So it's not that you're here starseed and you have to be on the down low with it. You're here to show how it's done. Yeah. I think that's how I see that.
Yeah. To wave your intergalactic flag.
Yes, that's what I always say. Yeah. Because there's so many of us, like so many, Pleiadians, Andromedans. There's other races as well that have no names, but yeah.
Yeah, and you think about, like, Andromeda is an entire galaxy. Palladium is an entire star system. Like, even on one planet within it, it's so interesting because it's so, in many ways, unfathomable. Like, what is it really? And after my shared death experience, I started having really sort of a spontaneous awakening to this. It's like, oh, there are other systems, there's a lot going on. And I was sharing with somebody about this, and she was quite skeptical and thought I had lost my mind. Probably like a lot of people do. But, and I just I don't know why I had this really intense experience of unity in my shared death experience a few months after my friend passed away, where I just completely had to integrate and accept the immense pain with the immense bliss and joy and love. And it was just like, okay, it's all part of it. It's all good. And that's not an easy thing to do, because the immense pain is no fun. And we don't want to have it, but it is part of it. And that experience really made me feel very intimately connected with everything. And so I just started getting all this information about the different star systems and where people were from. And so I was talking to somebody and telling them that they were from Andromeda, and they were like, okay, whatever. And then I started just reading like different descriptions for Andromeda and starseeds, and they were like, that's me. I know. Yeah. So it's, I think it is hard to define and to really know, because each individual soul has such a unique path, and but it's interesting, kind of like astrology, the different star signs and sun signs, you start to see some traits that apply.
I don't know if you work with this population, but I find that a lot of neurodivergent people are starseeds as well. Like on the the
Spectrum.
autism
Yeah.
spectrum, or even ADHD or dyslexia. They're all different expressions of kind of a different brain wiring that is there, so they can hold more of that energy. Yeah.
Yeah, completely. And because I was doing a lot of this work anonymously during the pandemic, I was doing a lot of starseed work. And so I connected with other people who identify as starseeds. And it was fascinating. It was absolutely fascinating because so many of them are just dialed in and remember. And as soon as we connect and I'm doing some sort of distant energy work with them, it's like, whoa, you know, because I can see and feel what's, I mean, I don't do it just randomly, you know, when somebody wants to work with me, then I'll connect with them and I'll see and feel what's going on in their energy system. And it's like, okay, you're operating on a whole other level. And it's really cool. It's really cool. So yeah, you know, I think that there's a lot that we don't know about. And even for myself, because I'm neurodivergent and I have misophonia and misokinesia, and it really started to help put a lot of those things into perspective as well.
What is misokinesia?
It is, so both misophonia and misokinesia, it's like an intense reaction of rage and fear and panic where you feel like you're under attack. But misophonia is fear or hatred of sound, different
No, I have
sound.
that too.
Okay. Misokinesia is movements. So somebody like tapping their foot or twirling their hair or like, you know, like it's a visual thing. It's very similar to misophonia, but it's visual triggers.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that that was part of it. Yeah.
It can be. It's not for everyone. I actually
Right.
participated in a study about a year or two ago where they were looking at misokinesia because it's much, even misophonia is a term that didn't exist like 20 years ago. So misokinesia is even more recent and they're trying to gain understanding of it.
That's funny. Yeah, I didn't know what it was, but I always felt really bad about myself because I would go into like a blind rage. I mean, on the inside, I would never do anything.
Yeah, exactly.
But
All
like,
this internalized rage.
yeah, ex-boyfriend just sitting on my bed eating. I'll be like, in my mind, I could see myself taking an ice pick to their jaw, like, stop it, you know.
Completely.
It's like ridiculous. But this, I would tell them like, I don't know what's happening, but I need to like remove myself from the situation because I cannot stand that noise.
I
Yeah.
know I'm such a peace-loving person and peace advocate,
Same.
but man, I want to blow your brains out right now.
Exactly. But I didn't know that was part of like the being neurodivergent. Is it?
Well,
That's,
because it's so new and not fully understand, some people do classify it as a neurological disorder.
oh,
So it just depends. I had to do a lot of research with it because it's been a big part of my life, and I'm significantly better, you know, with it right now than I have been ever in my life. I've done a lot of work around it. I don't think it's ever fully gone. I know it's there. It is there. But yeah, it's been a big thing in my life. So
oh, oh, that's good to learn about. Yeah, it's fun.
yeah, this has been fun. The whole conversation has been fun. When the ETs do come down with their bullhorns, we have to, you know, get on and start our channel to like communicate and let people know. But I do see, you know, all these people having telepathic communications and channeling. I do feel like this has just been exploding the past few years, and I feel like this is going to play an important role in
It's been
this
exploding.
exposure.
Yeah, people having all kinds of awakening experience and starting to speak light language out of nowhere. It's really
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah.
All right. Well,
It's lovely speaking with you.
very, very lovely to speak with you. Let's do it again. And so thank you, Jeroen. And I'll post information about your Instagram and website and YouTube channel in the description.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye, Aaron.
Bye.
No problem.
Thank
Bye.
you.